In the heart of Kansas, where the horizon stretches unbroken and the sky seems endless, Jeremiah Brooks worked a piece of land passed down through generations, soil that held the sweat and dreams of his family. The farm was more than acreage and crops. It was a legacy carved out of hardship, a promise of better days stitched into every furrow of earth. Jeremiah was a tall, broad-shouldered black man in his early 40s, his skin sun-darkened and his hands calloused from years of labor. His eyes, the color of rich soil, held stories of loss, resilience, and quiet hope. 3 years earlier, cancer had claimed his wife, Patrice, leaving him to raise their only child, Amaya, alone. Amaya was 17, bright as the Kansas sun, her dreams reaching far beyond the boundaries of their small town. She had been accepted to her dream university in Chicago, a beacon of possibility, but tuition loomed like a mountain Jeremiah wasn't sure he could climb. Every plan, every prayer, every drop of sweat was poured into this year's harvest. If the weather held, if the pests stayed away, if buyers honored their commitments, Jeremiah believed he could cover Amaya's first year of college, pay down the lingering bank loan, and keep their modest home standing another season. The farm was their lifeline, and failure wasn't an option. Each morning, Jeremiah rose before the first rays of dawn brushed the sky, taking long strides across his fields, inspecting the corn with the care of a father watching over his children. The crops stood tall, their silk tassels catching the soft morning light, the rhythmic sway of the stalks whispering promises of abundance. His old pickup truck, a dented but dependable Ford, sat parked near the gravel path that cut through the property. The engine clicked quietly as it cooled from the drive down the rutted road. With sleeves rolled up, Jeremiah tended to the irrigation lines, patched fences, and checked the soil, watching for the smallest signs of trouble. He didn't talk to the plants like his father once did, but he listened to the rustle of the leaves, the buzz of the bees, the chirp of distant birds. The land spoke in its own language, and Jeremiah had learned to understand it. Inside the small, weather-worn farmhouse, Amaya was usually at the kitchen table by the time her father came in for breakfast, a textbook open beside her bowl of oatmeal. She never complained about the second-hand clothes or the leaky roof. She just kept studying, kept believing, and Jeremiah clung to that faith like a life raft. But fate, indifferent to hard work and good intentions, had other plans. It happened on a blistering afternoon in late July. The air was thick, the heat pressing down like a weight on Jeremiah's shoulders as he worked on the stubborn valve of the irrigation pump. He was kneeling by the pump house, wrench in hand, when the sharp scream of tires shattered the quiet. The sound echoed off the fields like a gunshot. Jeremiah's heart lurched. The road near the southern edge of his land was notorious for its sharp curve, a death trap for anyone unfamiliar with its twist. Dropping his tools, Jeremiah sprinted across the field, boots pounding against the sun-baked dirt. A plume of dark smoke was already climbing into the sky by the time he reached the crash site. The sleek black sports car, a foreign make, high-end, gleaming just hours before, was now crumpled and smoldering, its nose buried deep in the heart of his cornfield. Flames licked hungrily at the engine compartment, the smell of gasoline sharp in the heavy air. Through the cracked windshield, Jeremiah spotted the driver slumped against the steering wheel, blood trailing from a gash on his forehead. Panic threatened to take hold, but Jeremiah shoved it down. There was no time for fear. He yanked on the door, handlight wouldn't budge. Grabbing a rock from the ground, he smashed the side window, cutting his arm on the jagged glass as he reached inside to pull the man free. The driver was unconscious, his body limp and heavy as Jeremiah dragged him out. The flames were growing, the heat searing, but Jeremiah didn't stop. He slung the stranger over his shoulder and staggered away from the car, just as the explosion ripped through the vehicle, sending a shockwave across the field. The blast consumed the surrounding corn, the flames racing across the rows like wildfire. Jeremiah shielded the stranger with his body, ducking low, the roar of the fire deafening. When the smoke cleared enough to see, half of his field, his entire season's work, was gone. The flames had claimed it all in minutes. Jeremiah stood, breathing hard, the stranger still draped over his shoulder. He didn't cry out or curse. He simply turned and carried the man back toward the farmhouse, his heart breaking beneath the weight of what he had just lost. Inside the house, Jeremiah laid the stranger gently on the couch, stripping off his own bloodied flannel shirt to tend to the man's head wound. The fire continued to rage outside, casting an orange glow through the windows, but Jeremiah focused on the task at hand. Save the man. Worry about the rest later. When the stranger finally stirred, confusion clouded his face. He reached for the bandage on his head, grimacing. Jeremiah handed him a glass of water, steady and calm. "What happened?" the man rasped. "You crashed into my field," Jeremiah replied, voice steady. "Your car caught fire. I pulled you out." The man's gaze drifted toward the window where the last wisps of smoke curled against the horizon. "That was your crop?" he asked, dread coloring his voice. Jeremiah nodded. "Most of it's gone." A long silence settled between them. The man, whose name was Nathaniel Quinn, one of the nation's most powerful billionaires, said nothing at first. But as he looked around the modest home, the peeling wallpaper, the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, the photo of Jeremiah, Patrice, and Amaya smiling brighter than the Suinha, understood more than Jeremiah had said aloud. Over the next few hours, Jeremiah shared pieces of his life. He spoke of Patrice's illness, of Amaya's acceptance to college, and of the fragile hope resting on the harvest that had just turned to ash. There was no accusation in his voice, no demands, just a man telling the truth. Nathaniel listened, and for perhaps the first time in his life, he truly heard. 3 days passed. Jeremiah worked what little remained of the field, refusing to let despair take root. He repaired irrigation lines, planted what seedlings he could, and leaned hard on faith. When Nathaniel returned, he didn't come alone. Behind him rolled a convoy of trucks, equipment, tools, and supplies that farmers in Jeremiah's position rarely dreamt of owning. Nathaniel stepped out of a modest sedan, dressed plainly, and approached Jeremiah with the same gravity that had filled the farmer's voice days earlier. "You saved my life," Nathaniel said. "And you asked for nothing. But I owe you more than words. I bought the land around your property. It's yours now. I'm giving it to you outright. And that," he gestured toward the gleaming machinery on the trucks, "is just the beginning." He handed Jeremiah an envelope, inside a scholarship certificate. Full tuition, housing, books, and expenses for Amaya's entire college journey. Jeremiah's knees nearly buckled. He clutched the envelope like it was made of glass. Standing on the porch, Amaya wept silently, her dreams no longer tethered to uncertainty. Months turned into years. The land, restored and thriving, sang with life again. Jeremiah, armed with new tools and support, taught local youth how to farm, sharing the gift he had been given. Amaya excelled at university, her heart never far from home. Nathaniel, though seldom present in person, remained a quiet benefactor, his gratitude growing alongside the corn that waved proudly beneath the Kansas sun. Jeremiah never forgot the day his field burned. But instead of sorrow, he remembered it as the day hope took root anew, proving that even from ashes, something beautiful could grow.